today will never happen again. And that's exactly why you must make it unforgettable. The first light of dawn spilled over the horizon, as if someone were gently drawing back the curtain of night to reveal the brilliance of a new beginning. The birds began their morning chorus. The wind whispered softly through the leaves, and yet amid the peaceful harmony of the world awakening something inside, Min was stirring restlessly. Today was different. Something deep within told him that this day would mark the start of a new chapter in his life. For years, Min had been living safely within the boundaries of comfort, steady job, predictable schedule, quiet evenings spent scrolling aimlessly through his phone. He had everything he needed, but not what he wanted. Deep down, he felt an emptiness, a dull ache that came from knowing he was capable of more yet. Choosing the easy path every day. It's fine, he used to tell himself, but he knew it wasn't. He was not living. He was merely existing. One ordinary morning changed everything. While sipping coffee, Min opened a small book a friend had given him and read a line that burned into his mind. No morning is meaningless, only those who have not yet awakened to their own lives believe so. Those words struck him like lightning. He put the cup down, walked to the window, and took a deep breath of the cool morning air. Something inside ignited a spark of purpose long buried beneath years of routine. That morning, Min made a decision. He would no longer drift through life. He would reclaim his mornings, his focus, his time. He would begin a journey not to defeat others, but to defeat himself, his fears, his doubts, and his inertia. This would be his personal revolution. He grabbed a small notebook and wrote on the first page. 1. I will own my mornings. 2. I will live with intention. 3. I will not let a single day pass in vain. Each word felt powerful, as if he were signing a contract with his future self. When he stepped outside, the familiar street looked different, alive, vibrant, full of possibility. He wasn't walking to work anymore. He was walking toward his destiny. Min stopped by his usual coffee shop, a small corner cafe buzzing with sleepy commuters. But today, as he watched people staring at their phones, sipping absent-mindedly, he saw something clearly. They were awake, but not alive. He realized how easily life could become an endless loop, one day blending into the next if one never paused to change direction. If I keep living the same way, he thought, I'll wake up one day wondering where my life went. He opened his notebook again and began sketching out a plan. Wake up an hour earlier, exercise, read daily, learn a new skill, and spend 10 minutes each morning writing what he was grateful for. He understood that true change didn't start with grand gestures, it started with small, consistent actions. Memories of past failures flickered through his mind, the missed opportunities, the times he had given up too soon. But instead of pain, he now felt clarity. Those moments weren't marks of defeat. They were lessons. If I survived disappointment, he told himself, then I can survive growth. Returning home, Min stood in front of the mirror. The reflection was the same, yet different. His eyes carried a new light, a quiet determination. He looked at himself and whispered, today, I choose breakthrough. Today, I choose victory. He laced up his shoes and stepped outside. The air was crisp, and the sky burned with the soft glow of sunrise. As he began to jog, his heartbeat matched the rhythm of his new resolve. Each breath, each step, each drop of sweat was proof that he had already begun to transform. When he finally stopped, catching his breath, he looked up at the sky. It seemed endless, boundless like the future itself. And in that vast expanse, he realized something profound. A breakthrough doesn't always begin with something extraordinary. Sometimes, it begins with a simple decision to start. That morning, Min didn't just begin a new day. He began a new life. He didn't know what challenges awaited him. But he knew this as long as he had the courage to rise with purpose. Every sunrise would be a victory waiting to be claimed. Starting is easy. Staying on fire, that's where the real victory lies. 3 weeks had passed since Min's life-changing morning. At first, everything was perfect. He woke up early, exercised, read, planned his days, and felt unstoppable. Every sunrise carried a rush of purpose. Every small task felt like progress. But then, as always happens when enthusiasm meets reality, the first cracks began to show. On the 21st morning, the alarm rang as usual. But instead of jumping out of bed, Min groaned and pulled the blanket over his head. Rain was falling outside, soft, rhythmic, comforting. The sound was too inviting, too gentle, and his mind whispered, "Just 5 more minutes." Those 5 minutes turned into 30. When he finally opened his eyes, daylight had already filled the room. He sighed. I missed my morning. It wasn't just about skipping a workout, it was about what it represented. That creeping feeling of failure, of slipping back into old habits. He sat up, frustrated. Maybe I'm not cut out for this, he thought. The fire that once burned so fiercely now flickered weakly. The day that followed was heavy. Work piled up, deadlines collided, colleagues complained, and every little thing seemed designed to test his patience. On his way home, Min sat at the bus stop, staring blankly at the rain-slick streets. He suddenly understood something. Breakthrough isn't a moment, it's a process. That night, he opened his beginning notebook. The pages still smelled faintly of coffee from that first day. He reread the words he had written. I will not let a single day pass in vain. The sentence hit differently this time. He smiled bitterly, then slowly straightened up. Maybe the point wasn't to be perfect every day. Maybe the point was to keep coming back no matter how many times he slipped. Because true strength isn't in never falling. It's in never staying down. Min picked up his pen and wrote a new line under the old ones. I allow myself to be tired, but I do not allow myself to stop. The next morning, it was still raining. The sky was grey, the air heavy. But Min got up anyway. Instead of jogging outside, he played his favorite playlist and worked out in his living room. The music mixed with the sound of rain, his breath, and his heartbeat a symphony of determination. Each drop of sweat that fell to the floor reminded him that progress wasn't about grand moments. It was about persistence. As he stretched, a quiet sense of pride warmed him. He had done it, not perfectly, but honestly. He wasn't fighting the world anymore, he was fighting his own weakness. Later that day, Min opened his social media app and typed, if you're tired but still trying, you're not alone. Leave a or comment I'm still going if you're fighting your own mornings too. Let's keep each other moving. He didn't expect much, but within hours, the post flooded with likes and comments. Thank you, I needed this. I almost gave up today, but reading this helped. I'm still going. Min smiled not because of the numbers, but because he realized something powerful. Motivation grows stronger when shared. Sometimes, we don't need to be inspired for others. We just need to remind each other that we're all human, still fighting the same battles. The following days weren't perfect, but they were real. Some mornings he woke up late. Some workouts were shorter, but he never stopped. He was learning the rhythm of growth, not a straight line, but a wave of effort and recovery. Each return after failure was its own small victory. Gradually, mornings transformed. They were no longer a challenge to conquer, but a sacred time to reconnect with his thoughts, his goals, and his sense of self. The quiet of dawn became his ally, not his enemy. One morning, standing before the mirror, Min saw it, the change, not in his face, but in his eyes. There was calm, steady determination there, the kind that doesn't shout, but indoors. He realized that breakthrough isn't a finish line. It's a choice repeated every day. He closed his notebook and whispered, "The fire may burn small today, but it's mine and I'll keep it alive." The storm outside had passed. Sunlight streamed through the window, soft and golden. Min smiled. He knew there would be more hard days ahead, but now he also knew that as long as he showed up, the fire would never truly die. Your life truly changes the moment you stop waiting for motivation and start taking action. After weeks of steady persistence fighting fatigue, laziness, and doubt, Min began to notice something new within himself. It wasn't an explosion of energy or some grand epiphany. It was something quieter, deeper, a sense of peace each morning when he opened his eyes. Waking up was no longer a battle between wanting to and having to. It had become a ritual of self-mastery and growth. He started waking up minutes before his alarm. No more groggy panic. No more endless scrolling. He would drink a glass of warm water, open the window, and let the morning breeze touch his face. The sunlight streaming through the curtains didn't just light up his room, it lit up his spirit. In those still moments, Min realized he was truly alive. His mornings had transformed from obligation to opportunity. They were no longer about discipline alone, but about connection with himself, his goals, and the present moment. No emails, no pressure, no noise, just him, his notebook, and the silence of purpose. One day, while cleaning his desk, Min found his beginning notebook. The very first page still carried the line, "I want to live with purpose." He smiled. That sentence was no longer a wish, it had become a habit. He didn't need to force himself to have purpose anymore, because purpose had quietly woven itself into the fabric of his daily life. He understood a profound truth. When an action is repeated long enough, it transforms into belief. That belief began to ripple into every part of his life. At work, he felt sharper, calmer, and more focused. He no longer feared difficult tasks or hid from challenges. His co-workers noticed the change. Min was always the first to arrive, the one who carried a quiet sense of control. When someone asked him what had happened, he simply replied, "I started by taking control of my mornings." Some nodded in understanding. Others laughed it off. Min didn't care. He no longer needed to prove anything. He knew that true change doesn't need attention, it speaks through results. Then came an unexpected opportunity. His company announced a new project, high pressure, high visibility, and in need of a leader. The old Min would have quietly stepped back, convincing himself he wasn't ready. But this time, he raised his hand before anyone else. The room fell silent for a moment. His manager looked surprised, then smiled. "I've been waiting for this, Min." The project was tough, tight deadlines, demanding clients, and long nights. There were moments Min felt drained, moments he questioned himself. But he didn't crumble. He leaned on the lessons from his mornings: focus, discipline, and emotional balance. When his teammates were stressed, he encouraged them. "We've come this far," he'd say. "Let's take one more step." Gradually, the team found their rhythm. Ideas started flowing. Problems turned into challenges instead of roadblocks. Min's quiet confidence became contagious. People began to follow his lead naturally. He wasn't just working hard, he was inspiring through his calm and consistency. Late one evening, after finishing a report, Min sat alone in the dim office. The light reflected off his desk, casting a soft glow on his notebook. He opened it again and wrote, "Breakthrough doesn't come from inspiration, it comes from action, repeated with faith." He closed the notebook and leaned back, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. He realized that this journey wasn't just about progress, it was about becoming the kind of person he could finally trust. The next day, the project team was recognized for finishing ahead of schedule. Applause echoed through the room, but Min didn't crave it. He smiled quietly. because he knew that his true victory had already happened. On the morning, he decided not to hit the snooze button. As he stepped outside after the meeting, the golden light of the late afternoon spread across the street like a second sunrise. He paused for a moment, breathing it in. This wasn't the end, it was just the first turning point of belief. Because now, Min understood something he never had before. Once you dare to act, no dream is too distant, no change too hard. The world doesn't move for those who wish, it moves for those who begin. The true strength of a person isn't measured by how often they win, but by how they rise after every fall. Life never moves in a straight line. Just when we believe everything is finally coming together, when confidence, purpose, and progress align, the universe gently reminds. U.S. Every flame needs wind to grow stronger. By the 6th month of his journey, Min felt unshakable. His discipline was firm, his energy steady, his mornings sacred. He had become someone others looked up to, the person who inspired without needing to speak much. Sometimes he would catch himself thinking, I can't believe I've come this far. Then came the storm. The major project Min and his team had worked on for months was suddenly cancelled due to a company restructuring. Everything, the sleepless nights, the careful plans, the pride, the unity was erased in a 20-minute meeting. The conference room fell silent. No one spoke. When the manager left, a teammate patted Min on the shoulder and said quietly, You did everything you could, Min. Don't blame yourself. He smiled faintly, but inside, something cracked. His mind began whispering the words he thought he'd silenced forever. Why try so hard if it all ends the same? Over the following days, Min moved like a shadow of himself. He still came to work, still smiled, still did what was expected, but the light in his eyes dimmed. Mornings became harder again. The alarm rang. But he stayed in bed, staring at the ceiling, unable to find a reason to move. The beginning notebook lay untouched on his desk, as if waiting for a version of Min that no longer existed. One rainy night, he sat by the window, watching raindrops race down the glass. The steady rhythm of water on the roof sounded like time itself, quietly reminding him of everything he'd built and everything he'd lost. He thought back to that first morning, the one that had started it all, when he'd believed that change was possible. And then the question came, am I only strong when things go my way? That single thought kept him awake until dawn. When the first light of morning touched his face, Min took a deep breath and did something he hadn't done in weeks. He opened his notebook. His hands trembled slightly as he wrote, Failure doesn't erase effort. It only tests whether my belief was real. Word by word, he poured everything onto the page, his anger, his disappointment, his fear of slipping back into the man he used to be. But as the ink dried, so did the storm within him. He realized that collapse doesn't destroy you. It reveals what your foundation is truly made of. That day, Min didn't force himself to be strong. He allowed himself to feel broken, but he refused to stay that way. He woke up early again, not because of motivation, but because of commitment. He didn't run or train hard. He simply walked through the quiet streets, feeling the damp air, the scent of rain-soaked earth. Every step whispered, still here, still moving. A week later, when the team had mostly recovered, Min called for a meeting. His voice was calm but steady. We failed the project, he said, but we didn't fail ourselves. The discipline, the teamwork, the growth we built together, those things still matter. No one replied, but in the silence, he saw something in their eyes, a flicker of hope. They didn't need speeches. They needed someone who dared to keep walking forward. And this time, Min realized he wasn't walking alone. A month later, a new project was announced. Min joined it quietly, without the fire of ambition this time, but with a deeper sense of purpose. He didn't need to prove anything anymore. He just wanted to keep growing, and that calm confidence made people trust him more than ever. One evening, as the sun set behind the office windows. Min paused to look at the fading light. The room glowed gold, warm and still. A smile formed on his lips, peaceful, genuine. He whispered to himself, "The storm doesn't come to destroy your faith. It comes to prove that it's worth keeping." He closed his eyes, breathing in the cool air that carried the scent of rain, dust, and life itself. He realized that he had already survived the hardest storm, the one raging inside his own heart. And in that quiet moment, Min finally understood. Sometimes life must break you open before it can rebuild you stronger. Sometimes victory isn't about the destination, it's about how you choose to walk each day. After the storm, the sky is always clearer. For Min, stepping out of failure wasn't about bouncing back quickly. It was about rising differently. He emerged from the shadows of exhaustion not with fiery ambition, but with a quiet, steady peace, the kind that only comes after you've lost, learned, and lived through it all. That morning, Min woke without the alarm. The sunlight slipped softly through the curtains, touching the old notebook on his desk, the same one that had followed him since the beginning. He opened it. Between the ink-stained pages were rushed notes, messy lines, and words scribbled during sleepless nights. But this time, as he read them, he didn't feel tired. He felt grateful. Grateful for the mornings he almost gave up. Grateful for the failures that forced him to look deeper. Grateful for the version of himself who refused to quit, even when the world stopped believing. On his way to work, he stopped by a small cafe. He sat by the window, watching sunlight ripple across the surface of his coffee. As he opened his laptop, a calm smile appeared. The work, the deadlines, the expectations, they were still there. But his relationship with them had changed. He realized that success isn't about achieving more, it's about being present. Enough to start again. Every single morning, during the team meeting that day, Min didn't speak as much as before. He listened more, absorbed more, and when he finally spoke, his words carried a quiet strength that made people pause. He no longer needed to be the loudest voice in the room, because clarity had replaced noise. That month, his team completed a small project. Nothing groundbreaking. No fanfare, but everyone felt proud. Min looked at their smiling faces and realized victory isn't always about applause, it's about meaning. It's about creating something together that matters, even in the smallest way. That evening, he returned home early. The sky was painted in soft orange and gold. From his balcony, Min watched the world rush by below, the sound of traffic, laughter, life. The scent of flowers drifted on the wind. For the first time in a long while, he felt completely at peace. He whispered to himself, almost like a confession, "I used to think breakthrough meant doing something extraordinary, but maybe it just means living differently, one choice at a time." Later that night, Min opened his notebook for what felt like the final entry of this chapter. He wrote slowly, deliberately. There is no ending to this journey. Every morning is a new beginning. Every challenge is a lesson, and every small victory deserves to be honored. He closed the notebook and looked out the night sky. The stars glimmered faintly, like silent witnesses of his growth. Life wasn't easier now, but it didn't need to be. It was real, and he had learned to live it fully. The next morning, Min rose again before sunrise. The same glass of warm water, the same breeze moving through the curtains, the same sound of birds greeting the dawn. But everything felt new because he was new. The man in the mirror smiled back at him, calm, confident, and alive. He wasn't smiling because he had made it. He was smiling because he had finally understood that every day he still could. Min's story is not unique, it's the story of anyone who has ever fallen, doubted, or felt lost, yet still chose to rise. Because a breakthrough isn't a single moment, it's a decision, made again and again. And when you begin each day with intention, gratitude, and courage. Even the hardest storms can't take away your victory, because true triumph isn't about conquering the world. It's about conquering yourself. If you followed Min's journey to this point, thank you for walking beside him, for feeling his story, and perhaps for seeing a reflection of your own within it. And if you, too, believe that every morning holds the chance for a new breakthrough, then consider subscribing not just to this channel, but to the idea that we can all rise, grow, and win, one day at a time.